From conflict to conversation with Luke Archer on Manousso Musing. That is our topic for today on Manousso Musing with seasoned mediator trainer Dr. Barbara Manousso. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact dependent. Hey everyone, this is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator. I work throughout Florida and Texas.
And I'm Dr. Barbara Sunderland Manousso in Texas and in Rhode Island and worldwide. So today we're very happy to bring in an international component to our program. And I'd like to introduce Luke Archer. And Luke is from Dublin, Ireland, and he now is living in Lyon, France. So we're very excited to hear about your program, Luke, Conflict to Conversation. And your background is very interesting, how you have taken years of your professional experience and you have made it flow into this very important tool that you share. You said on 5 continents. I am so impressed and so excited. So, Luke, tell us a little bit about this journey. What brought you to the realization of this conflict to conversation with Aikido, verbal Aikido?
That's right, Verbal Aikido. It's kind of a long story, I think, because it starts, I think, when I was a kid, and I was subject to a lot of bullying, a lot of harassment when I was a kid, and I, uh, a good few years ago, I heard somebody say to me, "Be the person you needed when you were younger." And I think I didn't realize it at first, but essentially that's what this has come to be. Um, I'm an Aikido practitioner too, and little by little, when I came over to France, I started working in schools, and I was doing communication training, and then I went out by my own because it was what I was doing was pretty successful, and essentially. I was asked to develop a training to help teachers manage difficult students, and it really stemmed from there. What I thought would be a good idea to use Aikido, because it's in fact it's a peaceful martial art in the sense that you won't find Aikido in the Olympic Games or anything, because there's not that idea of trying to dominate or win. The idea is to reduce the attack to nothing, so that the other person doesn't really want to continue to attack you, but you can also find that balance with them in it. So I really found that that this approach was was helpful to a lot of people, and I was getting a lot of good feedback from it. And I wrote a book, and that was kind of successful, and things really stemmed from there. Um, I've been uh, I've been helping essentially social education and medical sectors, where I think it's a vocation, and people are there to serve, and it's been a wonderful journey, I got to say. And at the end of the day, to be able to uh, go back and work even in schools and with kids from 5 up, to help them manage bullies and bullying within school context, and actually see these kids out in the yard, and being able to manage it, and de-escalating with the skills that they've developed through the process, to to have better relationships with others, and essentially have better relationships with themselves.
Awesome. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and on Manousso Musing. When I first learned about your work, my first question, just being a guy, was, man, I wonder if he does karate. I know that's probably you've probably gotten that before. It sounds really tacky, so I apologize. But I genuinely was interested in knowing how, first off, do you do martial arts? And then how where did this idea crystallize in your mind to how you're going to take your martial art to helping people resolve conflict?
Right. Well, um, Yeah, I think I fell in love with the philosophy of Aikido. I mean, Aikido, it's as I said, it's a martial art that was developed in Japan in the last century by a guy called Morihei Ueshiba, who he traveled to the States and he kind of went from dojo to dojo, sharing the practice. But he also was very deeply, touched by violence and violence between the wars. And he was a very highly trained martial artist, and but he adapted it so that it was a process, a martial art that would, protect oneself and the other person, which was kind of innovative. This idea of it's not trying to dominate the other person, but it's maintaining uh, protection. His one of his famous phrases is, if you hurt another person, you're hurting yourself. So I think I really fell in love with this, but the philosophy and the practice on the mat. And when, as a teacher trainer, one of my clients asked me, "Can you develop workshops to help us manage the, what at the time was just the difficult students that they were dealing with?" They were coming and saying, "Yeah, that's not what it says here on Wikipedia," and they were, the teachers were finding it kind of difficult to deal with. And so that's when I kind of twigged it. It would be nice to have a process where when you feel verbally attacked, that you're able to protect both yourself and the other person. And especially in the context of teacher training and our teaching others, it's kind of important, the relationship that, for me as a teacher myself, I think it's key that there's a good atmosphere in any training that you do, and that again has a huge impact on whether people are receptive to what you're doing or not.
That's exciting, Luke. And with all this conflict in the world that we're facing with every place, it's every large scale, small scale. It's sad that we can't just give everybody a sprinkling of this information and quiet them down, and instead of killing people, understand them and to give them an opportunity to have a voice in a conversation.
Yep.
With that being said, Luke, what are some of the basics? And I know you're not going to give us a training in the next 20 minutes here, but just to give an idea, what are some of the elements that you use in your training to help develop this concept and to help impart it to other people?
Well, one of the most common things I hear from people when we're training on what we call the verbal mat is that it's hard, and it is. But it's actually simple, but it's just not easy. It's the simplicity of it is that there is three moves, and it is movement. It's not a process, 1, 2, 3, and you're done. It's a dance. So you're kind of constantly moving between three postures. I'll share with you what they are really simply. It's me, you, and us. So that me is a really simple. It's a simple, but it's a lifelong path of coming back to center, what we call centering, or returning to that place of inner serenity, which is tough, which is which is one of the hardest things, especially when you feel under attack. But it's key. That is the key sort of part, to be able to return to that place of of a, inner confidence, if you like, or we call it an inner smile, but someplace within. And it's everyone has their own way to get there. And we give lots of different techniques of how to get there, but essentially it's that me place, and being able to then go to the you. So it's that other person, and truly accompany them. Sincerity is so key in this. We'll maybe talk about it a bit later, but you have a technique that is, to accompany the person, but you're not sincerely interested in what they have to say. Well, then that's going to create an escalation. And so it's that constant movement between centered me and that neutral as possible you, and backwards and forwards until an us appears. And so it's that dance. And what we've just noticed is that using, maintaining these postures, which we accompany with the course techniques, but maintaining these postures, that is what just sometimes immediately, but more often than not, it takes a little bit of time, and it de-escalates and it de-escalates until it gets to a more conversational energy.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'll be honest. I have never had any kind of martial arts training, but I do understand the concept of posture, right, and positioning. And what's been the response to all of this? I understand that you've sold your book around the world, but like, does it work on every sort, of person who's interested in learning how to reduce conflicts, from whether it's kids or older individuals?
Yeah, like I said, initially the training that I did was with teachers to help them navigate those difficult conversations, those difficult times with students. And I think there is a certain sort of cultural adaptation that we of course take into consideration when we're doing it, and how we source the training that we do is from people's real situations. It's got to be real. I mean, we come with I'll always travel with like what we call a sack attack, which is this little bag of full of different attacks. I can show it to you here, but essentially you've got different places. For example, here in Texas, I was told that if somebody says "bless your heart," that's actually an attack. So that often can be taken as an attack. So whatever it is, yeah, it could, it will be different in different contexts and with different people, of course. But being able to come back to that centered place and accompany that person, no matter what it is they say, and in whatever context, uh, you'll be able to, at the very minimum, preserve yourself and avoid an escalation. And in more often than not, if you're good at, if you stick with it and practice, you'll see very quickly how people can you'll actually be able to connect on a more empathic level with the other and build the relationship rather than destroy it.
Wow, that's fabulous. And so what I'm hearing is that your skill set is very much one to help the person who might feel under attack or might feel bullied, but two, when they see a situation that they feel that they are being aggressive with, it would also help them tone down or reevaluate why they're pushing those buttons. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Barbara. It's there's and we can all be attackers, and in fact we make in verbal aikido we kind of define what is an attack is if you feel tension because of something that was said or even something that was done, or I'd even like to extend it, if no matter what it is. Personally, I remember my son saying to me after a couple of years, he goes, "Dad, it's a really big change for you since you've done verbal aikido because you don't get annoyed at the printer anymore." So, so this is something that creates tension in your life, and this is again about the philosophy is to whatever when you notice that tension, and this is often one of the things that we ask people to do is to challenge even kids on their body. Where do they recognize that tension when it arises? Because that's your body telling you, hey, you have a choice. You have an opportunity here to let it happen and escalate, or to actually use that as a trigger to say, how can I return back to my center or as close as I can? Because let's face it, if there's an exchange that's starting to get heated, if one person has that intention to say, I want to get centered to be able to accompany this better, there's going to be a better result at the end than if the two of them just kind of let go and start reacting to whatever's is coming at them. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because in the one of the first trainings that I did, it was with the teachers, and the director of that school asked me to actually come back and train the admin staff, because there was it was like clans there. They weren't even talking to each other. And so after it was a 2-day initial training that we do with them, and after the first day, she was on the phone to me saying, "Luke, the atmosphere has completely changed," and that's what it was, Robert. People started to recognize the things that they were doing that were contributing to escalation, and it's a choice we have to be able to say,
Right.
let's be conscious about this. Are we contributing to things escalating, or are we contributing to things de-escalating? But we do have to be careful that we're not just being silent or just taking it, because if we're just doing something to keep the peace, well, then the conflict starts inside. So that's a kind of an important aspect to be aware of too. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And of course,
How
avoid
this might apply.
you look at the four different, opportunities that people have, or conflict management styles. You have your avoidance, you
Yeah,
have your competition, you have your accommodation, and you have your getting together and singing kumbaya
collaboration.
together,
Yeah,
in, coordination, cooperation.
collaboration. Yeah,
And so you are then addressing each one of these styles of conflict, I take it.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have reactions, and personally, I was an avoider. I was most
Oh,
definitely an avoider. I was one of those people, a people pleaser, and that was a long path of work that I needed to do with it. But yeah, it definitely addresses each one of those. But at the same time, I mean, we've got these fight or flight reactions that we will do, and fight, flight, freeze, and there's others if you like. But essentially, what this is, what the training involves is a little bit of soul searching. You got to kind of, if you're aware of your own personal style, that can give you something to work on. But being able to recognize what's happening within, like everything we do, kind of touches on two essential skills, which are self-observation and intention. So no matter what we're doing, we're always looking to see, well, what's happening within me, and what is my intention is, and from that place, it's going towards, you know, I mean it's going towards essentially centering, accompanying, or looking for harmony in some way. So that's the posture one, posture two, or posture three. So no matter what style of or natural conflict management you have, this training that we do, it's developing reflexes. It's not as sort of like a one-off, and you'll be good, because if you imagine, and Mac touched on it earlier, this idea of martial arts training. One of the things that I ask people often in trainings is, has anyone here done any martial arts, and how long did it take them to be able to manage an unexpected attack? And invariably it'll be between 3 and 10 years.
wow.
So this thing, it takes a lot of work. It takes actual training, but once you stick with it, you'll start to see results pretty quickly. And again, and at the end of the day, you'll be able to walk home with a little bit more energy, because all, whether it's martial
Train you.
practitioners, yeah, well, martial practitioners or VA practitioners, that the skill that they're looking at is to be able to reduce the amount of energy that they use, and to have smoother moves all the time. And we can that's for the rest of our lives, really.
Wow.
Got it. So, and I think there might be a tech glitch earlier that caused my other
Yes.
question to get swallowed up. But what I was going to ask Luke is, here's a scenario. There's a gentleman who goes to an apartment complex office angry because his rent has just gone up and he has no idea why. There's a misunderstanding. And so he goes in there and there's a young woman at the desk and he just blows up on her, right? Just attacks
Yeah.
her and is complaining. Now he has his reasons because he feels that this is unjust. However, the poor young lady has no control over his bill. And
Exactly.
this was a story that was just being recounted to me some days ago. And I'm just curious, what would your training, how would that help the young lady to respond?
Quickly, it would be able to give it her a means to not take things personally, and to be able to take to actually, one of the first things you learn in most martial arts is how to find that appropriate distance and space to be
Mhm.
able to re-engage with that other person without getting hurt. So one of the ways, Mac, that we will look at that specifically, for example, any such situation that you're talking about, is to say, bring it. So we would ask that person to say, okay, so you're the best person who knows what you dealt with in that attack, and so throw back out what you received. I mean, we say that kids are like sponges; they take everything in, but we are too. We were taking everything in, and in fact, the practice that we do, and we get into practice as soon as possible, it's like recycling. So people have all that negative energy that they've got built up within them, and they have this opportunity to evacuate it. So they'll evacuate it on a practitioner, and the practitioner will simply receive, and they'll dance with that until you'll start to see how it can de-escalate. But if I was to give you, if I was to give her just a couple of techniques, now remember, the techniques are nothing without the posture. And when I talk about posture, it's internal posture. So it's I'll maybe talk a little bit more about that. But essentially, to respond to your situation, if the guy comes in and he's all guns blazing, metaphorically, and he's sharing all these the difficulties that he's having, that's the moment for the person to return to center. We call that a back step, to return to find that place of security within, and then to accompany. And it's not an easy thing, but even if you have a reflexive move to be able to say, so can you tell me more about that? We have this in often initial response is to kind of justify or to argue or to defend and explain. We call that jading. But so if we're not justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining, it creates an energy shift within the exchange. So if that person is saying, "Oh, this isn't happening, and I don't understand why," a nice VA movement is, so okay, so tell me more about that. So just to be able to to truly receive that person as they are. In fact, in well, not all, but a lot of situations where there's this tension, it comes from this idea of not being understood. And that's what we're affording to these other people. We're giving them that space to truly be understood. And it's not just with saying, "Oh, I understand, I understand." No, because if you say "I understand" and you don't, well, that comes across as insincere, and that contributes to an escalation. So that posture, which takes training to be able to see something aggressive, something even negative coming at us, and we're able to take that space. And actually, this may sound ambitious, but we get to that point where we're almost looking forward to an opportunity to practice. So that takes, again, it's not instant, and it takes a development of confidence to get there. But to be able to say, "So tell me a little bit more about that. All right, is there anything else? Okay, so what's the key idea here? Tell me, what would you like me to understand about this? All right, and what would you prefer, maybe?" So it depends. You can't really give a specific. Here's the result. There are no moves in any martial art that are going to be able to counter any attack. But it really is posture that works here. So the person who's receiving this attack should be able to come back to center as quickly as they can, to be able to move to that other that other position of a U, to really receive that other person. When they feel even further attacked, they may need to come back and maybe express their position on it if necessary, and then back to the U, back to me, you, and then there's an us that appears. Listen, how about we take a little time out, and I'll see if what I can do to maybe resolve this issue, and we'll meet back here in 5 minutes, or something like that. There's no one result to it. And in fact, if you've decided what the us is going to be at the end, well, that's kind of trying to dominate. So you need to actually be open to discovering more about that other person, to see what their needs are, to see what their desires are, or what their emotions are. And any of these emotions, we shouldn't be trying to repress them, or push them down. We should be accompanying them to come out, so that so because they're all useful, all these emotions. I feel like we can go in different directions on this.
Oh, that is exciting. You are really, really inspiring me. I can't wait to finish your book and look at more of the details and the examples. Again, thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest on
Thank
Manousso
you.
Musing, Conflict to Conversation with Luke Archer. Thank you so much, Luke.
Thank
Yes.
you, Barbara. Thank you, Mac.
Thank you so much, Luke. And everyone, check us back next time at lmipodcast.com. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.